them.
Oh, so that stream's done.
Yeah, so we're launching a new. All right, I believe the new stream has launched. We will confirm it. Perhaps Robert, if you check and make sure you see it on YouTube.
There? Okay, so thank you everyone. We are back in session. Live stream is working. All right, so we have a motion to amend policy section 2.09.1, which currently is Libertarian National Congressional Committee, to amend it to Libertarian National Congressional Committee and LLCC. And then in the body, in the paragraph, the party shall act in good faith with the Libertarian National Congressional Committee and the LLCC. Does that do it? Got it, Mr. Hagan?
Got it.
Okay, let me read through the rest of that paragraph and make sure it doesn't need to appear again. Okay. All right. It was seconded by Mr. Smith. Are there any objections to amending the policy as stated? Hearing no objections. All right, the policy is so amended. Thank you. Good job, folks.
Yes.
Go forth and do great things with it. All right, moving on to the election of the LNC secretary. We have 45 minutes allotted for this. I know that the nominees have submitted statements online. I did say that we would have opportunity to hear from them. So, yes.
How many candidates are here?
How many of the candidates are here?
They can raise their hand.
3.
1.
How many candidates are good for secretary? 2.
3.
Oh, Steve, is Steve Green?
No, Sean.
And John Wolford.
Oh, Steve True.
Steve Sheets.
He went through?
Yeah,
I believe Steve Sheets
He
was
did.
through.
But we have, Sean, Karen, and
As a point of inquiry, Madam Chair, do we have somebody here who is representing Tyler Smith, who is also nominated?
we do not.
Look.
Mr. Smith, is anybody here representing Mr. Smith who also submitted his, or had his name submitted for nomination?
I can't.
Alex,
He sent me his information.
There we go.
support.
Procedurally, what do we need to do, Madam Chair?
Well, we can start hearing from them if someone wants to propose an order and a
So moved.
time limit.
Madam Chair, I move that we hear from candidates for secretary for 3 minutes each.
And do you have an order in which you would like to hear from them?
Order of nomination.
Okay, let's find out what that was.
It said that you might recap that I sent.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Webster, then Harmon.
You got him? Okay. All right, so, did someone second that?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to hear from the candidates for secretary for 3 minutes each in the order they were nominated. And it was seconded. Any objections to that procedure? Okay.
Oh, wait, will that be followed by questions? Is there time for questions?
Well, we can hear from them for 3 minutes each, and in that 3 minutes, we can ask them questions.
Okay.
How about that? All right, no objections to that. Okay, let's do it. So you are first. We've tried to kill the music. I don't know when it keeps coming back.
I think it's louder.
I'm Sean Lavasser from Maine. I've been a member of this party since 1992, a monthly pledge donor for decades, and a life member as of 2020. I have held numerous positions in the Maine party, secretary for 1 term, a couple terms as chair, and too many terms to count as treasurer. I am currently one of those rare ducks, an elected libertarian. I was appointed to my current position on the Knox County Budget Committee to fill a vacancy and had been reelected twice, and I'm currently serving as its chairman for the second year running. You've all had the opportunities to read my statement. All I really want to add is, why am I doing this? Because I just want to help. And not knowing who's going to be running or why, I threw my hat in the ring. I want to help. As in the back of my calling card, I have two quotes that kind of define me. One is from Oliver Wendell Holmes. I think that his life, his actions, and passion is required of a man that he should share the passion and action of his time at peril of being judged never to have lived. So rather than sit at home and worry about what's going to happen, I throw myself my hat in this. The other quote speaks to my humility from a comic book character, Ambush Bug. With great power comes great responsibility. No skill, no grace, but bags of responsibility. So at this point, if anybody has questions.
And forgive me if I missed it during your qualifications. Did you say you had experience as a secretary in any
One term as a Maine State Secretary. Really, it's not anything at the scale of this, but I've attended so many LNC meetings, actually read minutes, and been at 10 conventions, and frequently was at the LNC meetings before and after each convention whenever possible.
Awesome, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Lavasser?
Thank you.
Ms. Harlows?
Oh, I didn't realize I was next, I thought Mr. Wilford was.
I did too, but that's, Ms. Secretary has them in that order.
Okay, that's fine. You all know me extremely well, and I hope you read the statement I put online, but I'm going to repeat it somewhat. Whatever happened in September, we're all going to have our different opinions on that. It's been extraordinarily divisive to the party. And it's going to be one of the main things going into Reno when it shouldn't be. There's a lot of other things we can concentrate on in Reno. We have state parties now that are having some severe disagreements themselves and imposing certain things on them that we expect them to do if we can't model it ourselves isn't going to work. And I think all of us could step back and swallow our pride a little bit and model how to work forward in disagreement. I am fully confident that there's no other controversies coming down the road with this LNC, that our goal should be to put forth a great convention, as free as controversy as possible, that makes a lot of money. And as I said in the opening thing, we could shock the party right now by having some sort of reconciliation. And I think that, like the other decision reverberated down in a bad way, this would reverberate down in a good way. And I once again offered to abide by the restrictions that me and Mr. Michaela had agreed upon before, to make things as smooth as possible. I had agreed to accept the censure without dispute. I just think it's for the good of the party. I have agreed to attend the March meeting virtually to keep down any friction and whatever other reasonable things we could come to. I would still be open to mediation like I had always been. But I think right now we have an opportunity to model something to a fractured party. Y'all already know I can do the job. And I'm still preparing stuff for convention. I've done it. And if our goal is to come into this convention as fully prepared as possible, I want to do my part. And that's just basically a summary of what I had already said, but I'm open to questions.
Any questions for Ms. Harlows? Mr. Wilford?
Thank you everybody for this opportunity. I'll be quick, so hopefully we reclaim some time on this. Hopefully everybody read my statement and saw my resume. I'll go over really quickly. Been involved in the party for a little over a decade. I've been state chair of Texas for 4 years. I was state treasurer of Texas for 2 years before then. I have founded and chaired counties that I would say I was able to grow very successfully and get them on their feet. And I've done secretarial duties in committees. I am also very well versed in Robert's Rules of Order. I'm a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians. And the main reason I'm running is I want us to have a functional and competent secretary. I think I can do that job, and I want to help. I really don't have any other agendas or purposes beyond that. And if this body sees fit that I would be a good candidate or a good secretary, then I would be honored to carry that title. And I'm open to questions. Yes?
Are you planning to reseat the seat in Reno?
Yes.
Planning to seat the seat Reno if you don't win this election.
Can you repeat that question?
The question was, are you planning to seat the seat in Reno if you do not win here today?
I am not as sure about that. I will have to see how, I'll have to see what happens. I mean, obviously, if I come here and y'all determine I'm not a good candidate, maybe that's a pause for me to consider who a good candidate would be and back that person. So that would depend. I know.
Any other questions for Mr. Wolford? All right.
Right here.
What was the biggest controversy you encountered when you were chair of Texas?
Biggest controversy I encountered as chair of Texas. I'm assuming you mean internal controversies because,
Right.
Yeah, we had a particular member who, some would say still makes controversies, that a few times had to be called to order, but I mean, there were really, I can't think of anything big. I mean, you were there.
We had good shit locked down.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. You set that precedent. Any other questions for Mr. Wolford?
I have one.
Ms. Adams?
Being convention secretary is a huge undertaking. As somebody who's attended Texas State Convention, maybe for the other board members who haven't.
Would you extend time or 1 minute?
1 minute.
Second.
Any objections? Go.
Maybe you can kind of lay out some of the similarities, some of the job experience at a very large convention that you already have that you could contribute.
Yeah, so actually, and somebody can correct me on this, I think Texas has the largest state convention.
We do.
Okay, yeah. I've chaired that convention many times. I have done it without controversy. There was one controversy at a state convention. We had somebody fall out and needed medical attention, but that was, again, not due to drama. That was due to medical issues. Business got done swiftly. I think I'm the only chair who got through an entire rules report. And I did the job well enough, I will brag on myself a little here, that on my second term, I was reelected by acclamation. There was no objections to my reelection. And I do believe the only reason I'm not still chair, as I said before I ran, I believe in term limits. I will be running for 2 terms and I am done. I did that job very well, and it's one thing I will pride myself on is I know how to run a convention.
So you think you'll be with him?
I wouldn't have run if you just don't think he had run. Yes.
I'd like to move to extend time for the purposes of asking the other 2 candidates that are here if they plan to rerun if they are appointed.
Okay, can we continue, are you okay if we continue with the 3 minutes for the spokesperson for the
I'm
other
so
candidate,
sorry.
and
Yeah,
then
yes,
back around?
yes,
Is that
I'm
okay?
so sorry, I forgot about that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolford.
Sure. So I just have a candidate statement from Mr. Smith.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Speaks for that.
Was that next?
Yeah.
Okay,
Tyler Smith.
we'll do that last. Let's do it.
So, I'm
Go
sorry.
for Tyler, you're gonna speak for Tyler.
Sure.
Thank you.
Tyler sent me a candidate statement, I'll just go ahead and read that for you. Hello, my name is Tyler Smith. I'm humbled to be brought into consideration for the interim secretary position for the Libertarian Party. I'm originally from West Virginia, currently residing in Tempe, Arizona, where I share a home with my partner, Jordan, and our cat. I've spent years in administrative work up to and including the clerical and organizational work that is commanded by this position. My background includes work for education offices and units I was tied to during military service. In executing these tasks, it was apparent that we, as an ever-advancing species, were dependent on utilizing technology to improve accessibility, timeliness, and transparency. I'm in no way condemning my predecessors in their actions. I only seek to bring these expertise to the table to help build upon their undeniably necessary work they put in. To wit, I have aided in bringing more viable communication for student bodies, both personal and abroad, to communicating with various organizations that have brought diplomats from overseas to observe our educational, medical, and political processes in efforts to foster amicable relations between peoples, not governments. As far as that is concerned, I believe that I can bring these skills in a time that is so tumultuous for all of us, regardless of where we fall in the political compass in regards to libertarianism, and we could develop an administrative backbone that turns these passions towards more court victories like Michigan and positive movements like Georgia in terms of ballot access, showcasing modernity and process that gives wind to our activists, such as we've seen in criminal justice reforms within states like Ohio and hopefully in Tennessee, partnering with liberty advocates and showing we are more than just infighting, more than just a barrier to the duopoly, but rather a political force to be reckoned with and wielding the know-how and the passion that is establishing freedom in our lifetime. I'm fortunate to have the support of many candidates and libertarian activists who have helped me in developing my plans for helping the Libertarian Party keep winning and winning more frequently. Among those, these include everything from Senate candidates down to municipal reformists at town levels. I'm open to answering any questions that perhaps there, as well as to why they have chosen to support me. In saying that, please let me clarify, I'm not doing this to prove a point, to establish dominance of a faction, to devalue the very real issues of maintenance of principles. Moreover, I am doing this to make sure we keep what is necessary, and that is pushing liberty. I do have a campaign launch for 2022, and I do not hold that in secret, but I also understand that given the vitriol that is swirling within the circles in the party, cooler heads need to prevail, and pushing the business as needed is necessary to embolden our activists and candidates who are losing faith. I respect my opponent for 2022. I personally find many things that led to where we are now to be questionable, not uncertain in morality. My only purpose and motivation is keeping the LP moving, and it is no secret that I do this for the pavement pounders, sign waivers, door knockers, fundraisers, reformers, and the entirety of the front line that is liberty advocacy. And they need and deserve that backbone that should be the LNC. I appreciate your consideration and analysis of my competency in this matter, and hope for the best to come to this organization we all know, support, and love. Thank you.
Since Mr. Smith is not here to answer questions, anybody, Mr. Mullen?
Okay, I was just gonna ask, I think, I wanted to verify, I saw that Mr. Smith had said that he would be running for.
Yeah, he's made no
So, if the body will indulge me, Mr. Mullen very fairly asked that we return to the first two candidates and ask them the same question about running again. Is that it?
Yeah, if they would seek re-election.
So we can just do that without the formalities. That would be great.
I have no intention of running for a full term as secretary.
Thank you. Ms. Harlan.
I had already declared before September, and I've continued to declare, but similar to what Mr. Wilford had said, I wish we had term limits in our bylaws. I arrived at a slightly different conclusion. I believe in 3 consecutive terms in any one office is enough. Take a break for a while, and I don't consider the interruption a get out of free card. So I am rerunning, and it would be my last term.
Thank you. And Noda was also nominated.
Yeah.
So
Very
Mr.
quickly,
Mullen.
NODA is always an option. It should always be an option. NODA is now an option for you. The end.
All
right.
I'll be back.
All right.
Can we explain how Mr. Mullen?
Oh, yeah. So, all right.
I have a question.
Mr. Longstreth.
So my question is the embodiment of NODA today, is that a person, an individual, or a concept?
It was nominated, I can speak to it authoritatively, but it was nominated as a candidate, not as a concept. So it can be eliminated.
All.
Yes, they can be eliminated.
Thank you, sir.
The nomination was made with that explicit explanation. All right. So here's the question, what are we doing? Like, oh, we're just gonna vote? Okay, well, cool, all right, good enough. Then, with the speeches concluded, we're gonna move on to a vote. It is a ranked choice vote, as I recall, as part of the motion.
I thought it was IRB.
Same thing. Same. Ranked choice is from, yes.
Double tree.
Okay, yeah, and LNC members, remember this is a open ballot, it's not secret, so sign your ballots, rank your candidates, and,
Mr. Moment?
Yes.
We're using the notepads provided, correct?
yes, yes. Conveniently, or whatever, yeah, I think there's,
Can we have the candidate's name up on the screen or something?
hey, that's a super great idea. Trump, I'm gonna steal them off of, hey Tim, are you able to put your screen up on the, are you able to put your screen up here? We have a request to have the candidate's names listed on the.
Robert.
Oh, guys, just wake it up, it's open.
Is this it?
No.
That's fine.
Oh, this one. Oh.
And it's already out of Word doc open, so if you want to use that, that's fine.
Alright, and you can do it in, order of nomination, or.
Mr. Moment, who are the tellers?
Give me
So we
one
asked
moment.
the all.
I can volunteer as tribute.
Could we get an alternate who is not running for secretary? Or Mr. Sheets?
Alright, yeah, alright.
So it sounds like.
Hi, Tim.
Mr. Gass, or as myself, so.
Yes, that's perfect. Got you. I was actually gonna say this part, so I can look at it. So. Mr. Chair, for the order. Yeah, please explain again exactly what we are doing. All right, everybody, just to be very, very clear, this is an instant runoff, AKA ranked choice election. You are rating your candidates in favor, in ranked order from your favorite to your least favorite. You do not have to rank every candidate. You can stop when you find that the list of candidates is no longer acceptable and you don't care anymore. And as a reminder, NOTA has been nominated as a candidate, not as a concept, which means NOTA can be eliminated. So it does not live forever. So
We are putting our name on the ballot.
and you need to sign your ballot. Yes.
Did anybody else not receive a ballot besides the person?
I believe the chair has not received a ballot. Oh, never mind, she's got one. There we go.
Thank you.
No, I don't need a ballot. Awesome. I'm turning the gavel back over to the chair.
Madam Chair, to be clear, since NOTA is as a candidate, you can rank people below NOTA, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And we have 5 candidates, including NOTA. 5 and 5.
They're open. Oh, are you ready?
Yes, your time. Okay. Yes. Yep. Oh, and your signatures, you can scratch Mr. Crinkle name too.
We have to put our names on our ballots?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's ranked choice, so it'll be, yes. It's basically gonna come down to whoever's left. Right. I mean, you just keep eliminating until there's a majority. I can tell it all. We have 18 here, 16, and we have 9 is the winner. Or unless somebody's ballot expires, in which case that number is. Because if ballots expire, then they'll be shifted. In each round, we're going until we get a majority in the round.
But we're recounting the same ballots, not three ballots.
Correct. And I'll help tally. They're open ballots anyway.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
Yeah. They're open anyway. It's a matter of the record. All right. And I'll help, because I voted, they're voting, I'm not gonna touch them, but I will help you.
To make sure we have the right constitution on time. 15 is the point they're diamond.
Well, unfortunately,
It's kind of
it's showing me the real of everything. Right, so that was super shady, horrible wall there also. And you'll see copies of
No. So we're waiting for the chair to cast her ballot.
I'm not.
Okay, chair's not going to vote. So now it only requires. Okay. So here's the way to easily do this. Separate all number ones into your own pots. Right? So. No, go ahead.
This meeting has cost nothing else. That's my first.
Let's finish out
Yes. We don't need that. We'll be at ease for about 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, Mr. Wilford has the before leaving 7. I'm gonna go back.
Alright, thank you.
It's on you, boss. I'm just leaving. There's no.
Thank you, guys.
The website is, we have a channel. The number of choices and approaches, the number of actual voters gets really screwed. They all get screwed. But it is really screwed. It's actually really well, you said 10 choices and 15 voters. It's like.
You'll have to tell her how we need to use Are in. So we will come back to order to announce those results and then possibly have another break for the new secretary to get situated. So the results were Mr. Wilford with 9 votes, Ms. Harless with 6 votes. Mr. Wilford is the LNC secretary.
Thank you.
All right. Move to recess for 5 minutes so that Mr. Wilford is set up as our new secretary.
Mr. Wilford, is that sufficient?
5 minutes.
We do 10?
That's what I said. I said 10.
We let this our committee reports, correct?
What's that?
Immediately next.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to recess for 10 minutes to allow the new secretary to get situated.
Didn't this take effect at the end of the meeting?
I'm fine to do it, I'm fine to.
We could also, like, I would just thought procedurally it took effect at the end, at the close of this meeting.
I don't have any reason to believe that that's the case.
I mean, I'm cool with also, if it is procedurally how it works, I'm cool with voting him to be secretary for this meeting. I just thought that's how it was.
It was my assumption that it would be immediate, but.
To answer maybe one of your concerns, Ms. Nana, I have the minutes on the Google Drive, which just means I give access to the next new secretary and you can continue from where I left off. That's what your concerns, someone taking over in the middle of a meeting.
No, I mean, I'm not concerned about it. I just thought literally that's how it works. I mean, I don't care. I have no preference. Yeah.
Are we reasonable?
Yes.
Well, it was never seconded.
Second.
We have a motion to recess for 10 minutes to allow the secretary to get situated. It has been seconded. Any objection to a 10-minute recess? We are recessed for 10 minutes. Back at 1. forum. Mr. Longstreth?
Madam Chair, I think it's appropriate that this body recognize the tremendous efforts that Mr. Hagan did as interim secretary.
Yes, you beat me to it, thank you.
While we're recognizing things, somebody might have missed that we had one of our comrades get older this week. Happy birthday, Mr. Longstreth.
How old?
35, thank you.
All right.
Look forward to do that.
Mr. Wilford, are you ready?
Yes.
He's born ready.
All right, so we are moving on to committee reports. And the first of our standing committees will be Audit Committee, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, everyone. Back now to more mundane subjects. The Audit Committee met on November 23rd. The report was issued on November 27th. You all have it in your OneNote. I'll be brief. We were hoping to have an audited financial statement and audit report for you at this meeting. It did not happen. There have been some delays. There are no worries. It has nothing to do with the status of the financials or any issues or problems with the financial results. It's simply put, 2020 was quite an unusual year, to be totally obvious. Between COVID, death in the family from Mr. Kraus, some health issues at the CPA firm that we were dealing with, and the fact that I've lost count of the number of venues we were supposed to have a convention at. Things are just delayed a little bit. So we are hoping to have a draft issued to the Audit Committee by mid-December, and shortly after that, once everything is approved, we will issue the audited financial statements and notes and corresponding documents to the board. For 2021, we have retained the firm of Mark Fry and Company. They are aware of the fact that next year the audit will be due for the convention in May. Nothing unusual for them, and they assure us that that will not be a problem. So we are going to work with them again in 2021. Just a reminder, the Audit Committee consists of myself, Mr. Mark Tunowitz, and Dr. Joe Buckman is the chair of the Audit Committee. Before I ask questions, I'll yield my time to Mr. Kraus if he has anything to say, and also Mr. Hagan, I don't know if you have anything to add or not, but Mr. Kraus?
Thank you. So last night I got a request for the final 3 items they needed. We were actually expecting they may actually have a draft audited financial, at least in part of the report. This week I didn't see that email until about 9:30, 10 o'clock last night. I immediately responded with the request. The only last thing is the functional allocation of expenses, which is done after they give me the journal adjustments for the audit, which they usually send to the Audit Committee first, just so you can review what it is that they need me to do. I do those journal adjustments, we do the functional allocation of expenses, that gets backed into their financial report. So it may actually be to you by the end of next week or early next week, depending when they get me the journal adjustments. So that's kind of where we are right now. But it almost got here. It almost got here. So I'm sorry I didn't see my email, or we could have had something for you all this weekend. But almost there. And then they do have the financials through the end of October. They are actually doing the audit through the end of July this year. So it'll be quite fast and easy to finish the audit for 2021 once they started, probably even in February or March prior to tax season. They may wait until after tax season just to put the finishing touches, but they should have everything they need in February, early February to finish this year.
Questions, anyone?
Thank you. All right, Advertising and Publication Review Committee, that would be me. We have our deliberations are confidential. We so far, since last meeting, have not had to reject anything, so there's nothing to report. Affiliate support is next, Ms. Sarwar.
Thank you. I will, as everybody else is saying, really this time now, I will keep this brief. I submitted my written report, and I just want to emphasize that our goal was to help 50 state, county level affiliates, and we were able to help 63 with fundraising. And our 2022 plans are to assist LPHQ, Ms. Burns and Ms. McCutcheon, with the repository of knowledge that the state affiliates have for handbooks and fundraising letters, et cetera, et cetera. So that will be our push for 2022. That's it.
Right. Questions for affiliate support? Thank you. Candidate support.
Hello everyone, Richard Manzo, I'm the chair of the Candidate Support Committee. I really have no report to give you other than why the committee has been so slow. As soon as I was made chair, felt with a illness that was giving me some pretty terrible fatigue that required me to take some time off from all of my evening duties, including my duties as an elected official. And since then, we've had several meetings that were scheduled concurrently with JC meeting and other LNC meetings of high priority. But other than that, we have a great team, including current and former elected officials, some experienced political operatives, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for candidate support? All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, next is Historic Preservation Committee. Ms. Harlow.
She has left.
Was there a report submitted for that, Madam Chair? I was curious if we have any update.
There was not. However, she, when I sent the first draft out, she indicated that she wanted 10 minutes because she always reports.
Or she just wants to circle back.
Is there anybody else from historical preservation here?
I'll move to table that item until somewhere other time in this meeting.
Okay.
I object. I'd say it's not even still.
All right, hearing no seconds, we're moving on. Information services, Liz. She's got, I think you asked for, I think I've got 10 minutes for you.
Yeah, I said 10 to 15.
We can extend if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, please. Because, so, I know there's a couple of you that are new to the LNC, so I'm gonna give you a really fast rundown. In Chicago, it was decided that information services will look into a learning management system. And so we had meetings for that. And at the last one in Louisville, we proposed 4 options, and it came down to 1. About half our committee has been familiar with this through either an academic experience through college. It's called Blackboard LMS. If you've ever heard of the name, they're a behemoth in the learning management system industry. The contact at Blackboard was acquired by Tony, which is why I decided to have him when he gets back in here to help me with it. So it comes with a number of, I really thought about what would benefit the party, and I don't like to help people out, but in a way that would make Kara's life easier, and staff's life easier, and it would ultimately benefit the party at large, because as who was it that mentioned scalable processes? Tyler. If a well-oiled machine works majority of the time, things go wrong sometimes, but when things just work, you don't have to think about them, you save a bunch of time, you save a bunch of money, and you can grow faster. So I sent out the report, you all should have it, admittedly 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning on Sunday. But I think one of the features that I like the most is the capability of automation. So I'm just going to pick on one of you to give an example. Let's pick on Chris. since you're my rep anyway.
Go right ahead, everybody else does it, pile on.
So let's say that somebody within region 1, for example, I came into a county secretary, Clark County Party, Libertarian Party, Nevada, a couple months ago as pro tem. Let's say I just came into that role and I needed to learn how in the hell to manage doing that role, right? Because I hadn't been a county secretary before. So it would be able to say, I would be able to, as a user, as a student of this, be able to go in and it would filter down, okay, so based on geography, it says I'm in region 1, and it would filter down all the, and it would, you know, it could say Nevada, and if maybe there would be information about Nevada, like compliance regulation. I know Tim Hagan knows all about this. And we would be able to get specific information like that, like a secretary, different from a treasurer, especially those two are the most compliant heavy, and being able to have that information, and that's just one example, readily available where you don't have a change of leadership means you lose all institutional knowledge. Because what is our biggest pain point in this party is you have changes of leadership, people just decide to screw off, someone decides to stir the pot, and all of a sudden everything dies with them out of that position. So a learning management system ultimately helps us preserve the institutional knowledge, and it's sorely needed. And just about any large corporation ever has some sort of way of instituting knowledge to new hires, new onboarding, as well as people development. And honestly, the more we can document and the less we have to do to spread this information, the easier it is. So here's Tony. Tony actually had the contact for Blackboard, so if you want to kind of give some background about them and your experiences with it.
Well, yeah, so, for those who don't know me, I'm Tony Durazio.
Different meeting.
Different meetings. No, I work in a higher ed IT, so I run into a lot of LMS. We considered several.
Yeah.
Figured I chose that time to go to the bathroom when you stood up, so I don't know how much of an introduction you gave.
I didn't mention we looked at you.
Yeah. So I've got a fair bit of experience with several of them. Students can compare and contrast between all of them. I can tell you that more institutions use Blackboard, more companies use Blackboard, because it's solid, it's easy to manage, it's dependable, it's reliable, and Blackboard's not going anywhere.
Didn't they just get bought?
Yeah, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're big enough to be in that position.
Yeah, they're big enough to get somebody's attention so they can grow further, really.
Exactly.
So that's usually how the game works. Doggy little dog. But I personally use Blackboard. It was called Blackboard Learn. I know this one's called Collaborate.
Yeah, there's a few different products.
There's a few different flavors of it, but I used it when I went to it, you know, we had to support it from an IT perspective, and I use a lot of software. Honestly, it's not even just biased, it's legitimately working. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know, that was something coming through the PA.
Yeah. All right, so just the brass tacks, because I do believe we need an LMS. We need on the CRM side, we need an LMS to spread institutional knowledge. I think that it'll definitely level up what Kara's doing, that we can get everybody, maybe we do all the 101 level stuff online, and then Kara's going out and doing, and the rest of the team's going out and doing the 201, 301, 401 training in person, so we can scale out the 101s, filter down who actually wants to get more involved, and then those trainings will be more intimate and more focused.
So just to kind of compound on that a little bit, there is the possibility of, if there were something hosted online, like an online class of some sort, if someone's not able to attend but they wanted information, as soon as that session ends, the recording is saved and they can access it. There's also the ability, like similar to how Zoom is with access control, you can have moderators, and those can have different moderators to kind of do the cat word management on the chat because we're libertarians.
So my big question, I think everybody's question, is twofold. One for you, and then one's gonna go back to Robert, I believe, which he just stepped out. Of course he did. He saw that coming, he's like, I'm out of here.
I'm out.
What's the setup cost and what's the annual recurring?
So the implementation cost is 30 to 60 days. Time frame is what they told us. That's 10,000. That's one time, and the annual is around 13,000. So I just put it even 13. It's easily half the cost of the others some of the others that we looked into, and I was actually blown away it came in that low.
Yeah, as was I. And that's for 1,000
Current users?
I'm sorry, not 1,000 current, 1,000 licensed users, so.
Okay, so basically 1,000 students.
So 1,000, yeah, so a student population of 1,000.
Okay.
You could say student plus instructor population.
Oh, good, Robert's back. Hi, Robert.
Hi, I just want to listen real quick.
The music's still on, it's right here.
Where is it?
I
We
hear
can
it.
all hear it.
Yeah, it's all over. There's one, there are two right here,
I'm enjoying the music personally.
and every once in a while there's a voice.
The voice is probably, okay, so it's just here.
Voice is creepy.
It's saying vote for no. Sometimes it gets pretty.
Yeah, it does.
It'd be easier for her to hear if we're quiet.
I can hear it right here.
It depends, so the problem is it depends on the song. Certain songs are louder than others.
Yes, really, really.
I know we shut it off, but we'll try again. Sorry, folks.
You can hear it now.
I can hear it. Sorry.
Did you turn off?
I hear it now.
I do hear something.
It's clearly right here. Yeah.
Yes, we're trying. It's like it's turned all the way down.
Robert's asking me if they didn't work because I didn't quite get the context entirely.
That was back.
I think we pause our time, Madam Chair, there are still 2 minutes remaining on this time.
Thank you. Alright, hold on a second. Are you in a position where you're prepared for these questions that you're getting this?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's already turned.
okay.
And then my other question is, hey, Robert, when we prepared the budget, maybe this is for the whole EC and that, I don't think any of these numbers were included in there, right? We didn't account for Blackboard or any of that, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Definitely
just
not
making
for
sure.
Blackboard.
Good deal.
But as somebody who's taught and no longer teaches at a public school level because of Blackboard, that should tell you my feelings about that one. Hey.
So, I'd like to rebut that. How long has it been?
Oh, maybe a year at this point.
Well, I mean, really Blackboard has improved over the last 5, so I don't know where you were working for school, but,
Fairfax County Public Schools, we're largest user of them because of all the issues they've been.
oh, they certainly did have a lot of issues for a lot of reasons. They cleaned up.
Orders of the day.
At this point.
So, all right, those are my questions.
Okay. Any other questions? With no objection, Ms. McCardle has a question for Liz. Any objections to hearing from Ms. McCardle? Proceed.
How many logins does the Blackboard proposal offer?
1,000 between
Yes,
students.
yes.
For students? What
1,000
about for-
students and instructors.
1,000 total, so that
1,000
includes
total,
students and
correct.
instructors?
That would include instructors.
Because we were told to double the CRM and add a little padding, and it's got low 400, so we just took 1,000, and that was safer.
Thank you.
Mr. Ginny?
Yeah, I have a question, so is there a license level that is less than 1,000?
I'm sorry, I skipped you.
You know, if other people have questions, I'll go last.
Yeah, sure. Without looking, we also do a quote for 500. Without looking, I couldn't tell you what that was. It was certainly more than half the 1,000.
It is.
Yeah, no, you get more, you save.
Yeah.
Time, I move to extend for 2 minutes.
Okay, I did have Mr. Nikela on the list and I skipped him.
I mean, does anybody else have any questions or anything? If not, I'll just continue.
What's that?
Dies for lack of a second.
Oh, I'll move to extend to Mr. Nikela.
Any objection?
Second.
I just want to say that I'm really excited about this. If you remember at the beginning of the term, I spoke a little bit about learning management systems and where I see the state of the party. And being the chair of the Florida State Party and being around for 80+ years, I think one of our single biggest opportunities is institutional knowledge and making sure we have consistency. And I think what we have endemic party-wide is a lack of consistency between different positions, between knowledge, between training, and different roles amongst the 50 states and candidates, etc. So we have some folks that are really well versed in one area, then when they leave or they get tired, then we lose all that. So if you go to Starbucks in Seattle or one in Washington, D.C., you're going to have consistency because they use learning management systems. So practically every chain that you go to, they have a learning management system. Microsoft, other companies, they all have these LMSs. So this is huge. This makes us into the major leagues. I think it's going to be really important to address that issue. So I'm really excited about this, and I look forward to seeing what we can do with it and grow it and utilize it.
You still have time, sure. It was extended for a second.
So I just started working for Rick Sporting Goods, the world's largest sporting goods retailer, and he's exactly right. You don't get these big conglomerates without having consistency anywhere. I mean, they start with like $300 in such a tiny little store that one of the biggest, and like, if you can't teach your people consistently, it's just not gonna work. And for the sake of the party, for the sake of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, it needs to happen.
Thank you. All right. Next report is from the Ballot Access Committee, and it is slated for 75 minutes. Mr. Trash. I will note that I believe Mr. Redpath is on the line. Mr. Winger was also supposed to be, however, we are ahead of schedule. And
Mr. Winger is getting on at this time too.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, that on.
Thank you.
First of all, I assure you we will not take the full 75 minutes, or at least I don't anticipate it to. The report has been submitted. It is available on the Google Drive. Just to go over a couple of highlights. So the Alabama petition drive is continuing to hit the targets. Obviously, still going to be quite a bit to go to get the signatures that are necessary. However, the targets and the production down there has been going very well. The numbers that you have on here on the ballot access report, and I also have written copies if anybody wants one of those. You can add another 2,000 signatures to that based on to the signatures in hand based on the report we got from Laurel Lane down in Alabama today. So. Today in addition to this number, yes. So the other, as far as 2021 petition drives go, we did have an issue in North Dakota where the petition drive has been halted. There was a turnover in the chair's position, and the drive did not go as the chair at that time had said that he would be taking that drive and running it to the end, and that has not necessarily happened. The good news is the encumbrance from the LNC of $9,000, none of that has been spent. At this time.
Can I add to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so North Dakota is my region. They did have a changeover. It's in my report. They also don't have any candidates. They're having a meeting right now to decide whether they're even going to bother to restart their petition drive. They don't have any candidates. They're just going to punt until 2024.
And the other thing that I believe Mr. Redpath is going to speak to as well, because there is that encumbrance that has already been encumbered for this year, would certainly request that whether it's the LNC or the executive committee, move that encumbrance for this year to the Alabama Drive for the remainder of this year. So just to go over the states, I've passed out the budget request for the ballot access budget this year. I am skipping over, by the way, we've had a lot of lawsuit success. The Georgia case won and is going to be appealed, obviously, by the state, but that lawsuit is proceeding. There was a victory in Maine. The ballot access laws in Maine that purged thousands of libertarian voter registrations. That's been overturned. I believe we're still waiting on remedies, and it's possible that Mr. Redpath and Mr. Winger may be able to elaborate a little bit on that as well. Also, I wanted to mention there's a potential legal challenge on deck in Tennessee because Tennessee's in the Sixth Circuit Court of U.S. Appeals, and there was a ruling in a ballot access case. It was not a libertarian. However, the 30,000 person signature requirement for Michigan was struck down, and there is hope that there may be able to get rid of the signature requirement in Tennessee, which is it's 56,083 signatures for a party petition in Tennessee. And just to show how ridiculous that is, also an independent petition, an independent candidate only takes 250. So chances are that one is ripe to be struck down. So getting into the ballot access request here for 2022, and I'm just going to go over the top level here, and I know Mr. Redpath and Mr. Wayne would like to speak on it. The Alabama Drive is going to cost approximately $114,000 more in order to complete the party petition. The request here is half of that, $57,000. The state of Illinois also, this figure represents close to approximately half of the cost of the ballot drive, as the Libertarian Party of Illinois should be able to provide 20,000 signatures of the 40,000 signature target that's necessary. In Massachusetts, there's a situation here where putting in the money for the petition drive this year with a slate of candidates, it will, with the possibility of retention, to keep it for 2024 with a 3% in any statewide race, including lesser statewide races. So that figure as well is close to approximately to half the amount that it will cost to have a petition drive. In New York here, unfortunately, as many of you know, the new ballot access law that was passed in New York is absolutely atrocious, and there's one typo in here. I said the previous amount of signatures was 5,000. It was actually 15,000, so it still wasn't great to begin with. But now it's 45,000 ballot signatures. The cost of that drive would be, I mean, it could run upwards of $500,000, depending on how it works. So unfortunately, it's very hard to make the argument this time around that the LNC should fund a petition drive, because with the retention rates necessary to retain the ballot access, chances are that the LNC is going to have to spend quite a lot of money in 2024, or the presidential candidate, either way, to get on the ballot for the presidential election. Yes, Mr. Moore.
I'd like to speak about New York at length here. I think it's pretty. It is by media definition, is by governmental definition, is by opportunity, is by commerce, perhaps one of the most important states in the nation. We need to get more money for New York. This is a state that's clearly capable and has continually engaged in their own warfare, their own support. This is not a state that's allowed to have themselves carried by the LNC in any measure. And I understand finances are difficult. But at the same time, you've got, in addition to Mr. Sharp's run for governor, you've got several very interesting rates. I think we're all familiar with Mr. Peter. There's a gentleman who's about to take on, at a very serious, thoughtful level, AOC, Mr. Jonathan Howe for Congress. New York is, in fact, the media platform for the nation. So it has issues well beyond just us running for office. So we've got serious candidates in one of the world media centers, right? And in a state that is really the linchpin for the Northeast. You know, if I'm not out of order, I love the opportunity. We've got the Vice Chair of New York here just to very briefly speak to that and to request somehow for us to carve out money this weekend to help New York. I understand that the LNC can't cover that or carry it, but one of the more interesting issues is that I would be happy to spend a week down in New York petitioning, just as a volunteer. I can't do that because I'm not from New York. So the challenges that they face are critical, and it's a critical platform. So could I ask all of you to give Mr. Tony D'Orazio as well to speak?
No, but would you like to finish your report before you take questions? Is that going to be better? Otherwise, we're going to be wondering.
If that's all right, but if I may go ahead and respond to Mr. Ford, because as I indicated to Mr. D'Orazio earlier, and I also plan to communicate to Mr. Sharp as a gubernatorial candidate, what this figure represents as far as the legal and lobbying. I do believe that this LNC should put forth some funds to help try and alleviate this law. I also would note it has been reported that there is at least one state legislator willing to introduce a bill to at least bring it back to what the previous signature requirements were. There are other parties, Working Families Party in particular, that has traditionally has a little bit of pull. Who are very vehemently against this law. There's an opportunity to engage in lobbying to change this law. There is also ongoing litigation. Now, as I indicated to the Vice Chair from New York, I am hoping that there can be efforts to fund the ballot access drive for the statewide candidates that I will personally commit to helping with outside of the LNC's outside of an allocation from the LNC. I also would like to note that this budget line request has been prepared considering that the preliminary budget number, and I understand that it is just a preliminary budget number, that number, it seems, was derived from an average of the ballot access costs that were spent in 2018 and the ballot access costs that were spent in 2020. The issue with that is because of the COVID, in some cases, relief that we had, that the LNC had, or that the Libertarian Party had, the signature requirements were reduced, thus less money was spent. So I believe in 2018 it was closer to 150,000 that had been spent on ballot access, and this budget request is certainly more in line with that amount as opposed to the 2020 amount, which was an anomaly. Ideally, there's a few other states that were not on the ballot right now that I would love for the LNC to fund ballot drives in all of them, but also understanding there are budgetary constraints and there are priorities all over the place that this committee has to fund. So this figure was arrived at with the hope that this could fit the bill to make sure that this is within the LNC's ability to fund this year. So one other thing that I would like to note, and I believe I'll just briefly note it because I do believe Mr. Winger wants to speak to this as well. We have a situation brewing in several states where the ugly head of top 2 primaries is starting to come back, but they've rebranded it now. Now it's top 5. You know, they figured out top 2 was terrible, then they tried top 4, and that was terrible, and now they're trying top 5. So it's a problem, and it's also there's a lot of money being thrown around, and I know that a ranked choice voting organization in one state has been offered $1 million by this group to support top 5 primaries in that state. So this is a growing challenge that is building, and it's something we need to keep an eye on, in my opinion. So with that, I would ask for Mr. Redpath if you would like to speak on this ballot access budget.
Mr. Redpath, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I have been watching on YouTube, and I think you just called for me to speak. So, and Mr. Winger, I think also would like to speak to the top 5 thread. He knows more about that than I do. Yeah, we need to go to finish the Alabama drive. Right now, we are right about almost 40,000 signatures in Alabama. We have the manpower there to complete this, I think, within about the next 4 months. I'd like to get it done in early April before the Illinois petition drive starts. With respect to Illinois, I think that the Illinois party, it's not our doing. The ballot access laws in this state are horrible, and we're dealing with an intransigent legislature and no initiative and referendum process to try to change things. But right now, the Illinois party has the money, and I think the volunteer manpower to do about 20,000 gross signatures themselves. We need 25,000 net signatures, but that means that we'll need outside help probably for about 20,000 signatures to match the effort put forth and the money put forth by the Libertarian Party of Illinois. I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate in Illinois. We have a gubernatorial ticket. John Phillips is the lieutenant governor candidate, and I know that we'll be pushing to make it even more Illinois weighted in terms of volunteer signatures and money. He and I will be doing that, I am sure. To try to minimize, I absolutely want to minimize any sort of national investment in Illinois. I'd love to do New York as well, but I do think there has to be some introspection as to whether New York can be accomplished, because it's not just a matter of money, it's also a matter of petitioning manpower. We're going to have, I believe, a 6-week window in New York. I forget exactly what you're doing, would know exactly when that 6-week window is, but it's just, you don't go to a store and buy signatures. You've got to recruit petitioners, and that petition drive in New York would be at least 60,000, probably more like 70,000 gross signatures. And right now, I don't know where the manpower, frankly, would come from in order to do that. That's something we could work on, but I just don't know offhand. And so, let me just see if there's anything else here that I'd like to address. Massachusetts, there would be an excellent chance to get 3% for a lower statewide office. Dan Fishman ran for auditor in 2018 and got that. That would mean that we have presidential ballot access and I think ballot access for other offices as well in 2024, and then a reserve of $10,000. So I would love to help all states. There are other states where we can petition that are not in here right now, and certainly the situation in New York, we have to work to change to permanently make ballot access easier in New York. But you certainly have my word. I will work to minimize LNC expenditures in Illinois, but we're probably going to need some help in order to get it done. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I'll hand it back to Mr. Thrasher.
What is going to be the presumed cost per signature on one?
So, Mr. Redpath, Mr. Rouse, I've just asked, what is the presumed per signature cost? And as I recall, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.50. It also, I think it's worth noting here that when we get around to 2024, I think there's a chance that the per signature rates that the LNC would have to budget for it's a chance, a very good chance that those are gonna go up. And in a lot of ways, the LNC got lucky, the Libertarian Party got lucky in 2020. It was one of the few, I guess you call it a benefit from the COVID situation, is that there were a lot of states where there was a lot of petitioners and a lot less signatures were required. It's not going to happen in 2024, but. Mr. Henry, yes, sir.
Yeah, what's in the draft budget for next year, the 114,000, happens to be the average of 2 years ago, 4 years ago. I actually got the number from previous ballot access report, and they were predicting 99,000 for next year, plus 15,000 carryover for Alabama.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But my question is, if we do not increase that by 52,000 to make a request, that means most likely not make like Illinois or Alabama, or what would be the decision if we do not increase that?
That, of course, that would be the LNC's decision as far as what gets cut from where. I say again that the Alabama, the figures here represent about half the cost of what it will take to run a successful drive. So, and that, by the way, as far as Alabama goes, I'd be happy to show anyone the raw data here. This was based on so there's the cost of how much has been spent, including any administrative, printing and all that good stuff. This was just taken from the cost of the ballot drive thus far, divided by per signatures, but also taking away, because the way Alabama is accounting includes the commissions that have been paid for ballot access fundraising being done. So this figure represents a cost per signature that is, it's not quite as high as that cost would be if those commissions were included in the math that was done here. Forgive me if that, I hope that makes sense. The point is, this is about 114,000 or so is going to be needed to complete the petition drive. So this, certainly asking for the LNC to do half of that. I guess I apologize because I don't have a great answer for that, because it is up to the board to come up with that. But Mr. Longstreet, yes.
So that I'm confused. Maybe I misheard and I'm flipping through things. But is the ask for ballot access then 114?
My apologies. Say again.
Is the ask for ballot access 114 or is it 166?
The ask from the ballot access committee is 166,000. The 114,000 is how much the entire to finish the entire Alabama drive. That's how much it will cost, or approximately, of course. That's an estimate of how much it will cost to finish the drive. The ask is for the LNC to contribute half of that. Yes, sir.
Final point on this for now. There are a number of conversations that have taken place informally, particularly last night, about the prime mission of the LNC. And obviously one of the prime missions of the LNC is ballot access. We do a lot of other things that we may or may not be very good at. But if in fact, if we can only take this small portion of the budget and dedicate it to the prime function, which just allows us at least the on-ramp to potentially elect people, which is the function of a political party, then what are we doing? And if we're going to then be fair about it, essentially, and I'm not looking to take away money from anybody else. I believe we need to start looking to allocate other parts of our budget towards this critical issue. And are we just writing off New York by doing this? Or just leaving them? I think it was a very famous saying with Gerald Ford was president, to this New York drop there. Is it? Because it's just $10,000?
So I will tell you, it pains me to not put anything in this budget request for the petition. I do see that there is an opportunity to change the law. And to me, that is probably, as far as the LNC is concerned at this time, to me, that is where we can have the most effect. I do personally, again, want to work with Mr. Sharp, Mr. Razio, the entire LP of Libertarian Party of New York, to try and find alternative ways to fund the petition drive in New York. But considering that you could be looking at, and it's in the full ballot access report, there is a table of ballot access in each state for 2020 and 22 and 24. And the estimate in there right now for New York is $350,000, and that is on the very low end.
But I would counter the point about the campaigns. Is it fair to expect campaigns that simultaneously campaign and then also be expected to somehow take money away from that effort towards ballot access? And again, this is going to have to be critical in terms of our 50-state ballot access issue going forward in New York. And finally, given the political chaos that's happening at the top of New York with a resigned governor, a contentious election, I'm not willing to base their future in terms of ballot access on the hopes of a single legislature, however well-intentioned that may be. Is this, I guess procedurally, and I apologize to the body here, is this the last time we'll be discussing this part of the budget, or will we have an opportunity during the budget phase?
I'm going to ask that you finish your report before you take any more questions.
Understood. Okay. At this time, so, excuse me, is Mr. Winger on the line?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Winger, would you like to speak about the top 5 madness that is rearing its ugly head again?
Yes, there's an initiative circulating in Missouri and Nevada, and I talked to the organizer for Missouri this morning. His name is David Rowland, and I said, did you think about the problem that the party retains its qualified status by pulling 2% of the vote from any statewide race that either the last 2 elections? And no, he hadn't thought about it. We're only on the ballot in Missouri because in 2020 we got over 2% for treasurer and attorney general. But under this thing, parties don't have nominees anymore, so the vote test would go away and we'd be off the ballot. We could only stay on by getting 2% for president. So the press claims this person named David Rowland, who seems very nice, is a libertarian. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I want state libertarian parties to oppose these things. And this is not the right venue to persuade the Missouri Libertarian Party to come out against it, the Nevada Libertarian Party to come out against it. But I will be working with anyone who wants to help me to do that, because what we think about this is very important to its public image, and we have suffered because unfortunately the Alaska Libertarian Party came out in favor of this sort of thing. So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I just wanted to express that.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. I was going to ask, are there any questions for Mr. Winger or Mr. Redpath at this time before let them go?
Ms. Adams had her hand up. Do you have?
Yeah, I do. I just have a quick question. For Mr. Thrasher.
Specifically for Winger and Redpath.
Yeah, for Mr. Winger. Hi, Mr. Winger, Aaron Adams, Region 7. Obviously, or I hope obviously, we would love to give the committee everything that they're asking for and more. In your opinion, if there was one thing that could go on this request, one thing, realizing that we cannot pass a deficit budget, one thing that could go, what would it be?
One thing, realizing that we cannot pass it out, but one thing that could go over it. One thing, realizing that we cannot pass it out, but one thing that could go over it.
Does that answer your
It sounded like you saying the same thing over and over.
No, that was the playback from the YouTube. Mr. Winger, do you have?
I haven't been able to hear. I can hear Bill Redknapp real clearly. Maybe he could translate and sum up what somebody just said, if that's appropriate. I can't. I didn't hear either.
So if I can convey, Ms. Adams' question was if they're noting that there are many things that the LNC has to fund at the moment, if there was one thing from this ask that you would cut, what would it be? Is that?
Yeah, the least important.
Did you say what should we cut if we had to cut something?
Yes.
Well, I guess North Dakota.
And that's definitely a concept. Okay.
We have something that's on the list.
I think the question has to do with 2022, not 2021.
Right.
Well, okay, I think I'd rather just defer to Bill on that, because he has a clear idea of what's been on the table here. And I could listen to the YouTube, but then, unfortunately, that's in the phone call. I can hang up the phone, but then I couldn't talk. So I think I'll just defer to Bill. Well, I would say this, that we've got to finish Alabama. We are 4-7 stunned with Alabama at this point. And I would say that there's anything, I don't know what Massachusetts is ready to do with respect to running somebody for for a lower level statewide office or any statewide office. But I think that is a high likelihood winner to clinch 2024 ballot status there. So that leaves a reserve, which is 10 grand, or lobbying in New York. It's important to lobby in New York. I don't know if we have to pay to do it. And of course, that just leaves Illinois. At $75,000, it's going to be tough. I don't think Illinois can do 40,000 gross signatures. Theoretically, we can, but the history shows that the volunteers can do. Sometimes our volunteer effort is 12 to 15,000 volunteer signatures, and believe me, I'm going to work to pump up that number. I mean, at the end of the day, you just break it down. I mean, in New York, if we had 100, if we had 100 volunteers do 450 ballots each over a 6-week period, we'd be able to do the 45,000. If we had 100 people to do 250 ballots here in Illinois, we'd get the 25,000 ballots. So the key to this is, and it's frustrating. I mean, in Alabama so far, the volunteer signature total so far is less than 1,000, fewer than 1,006 gathered by volunteers. But that's the key to cutting ballot access expenses in the future, is activating ballot volunteers to go out and do petition work. So, but if something had to be cut or reduced, I suppose it would likely be Illinois, unless Massachusetts isn't going to run somebody for a lower statewide office.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions specifically for Mr. Redpath?
I have a question, but the issue is that it's a legal one, and we probably need to be in executive session, and that's a problem. So I don't know if we're going to go back into executive session during the budget. So could I request that Mr. Redpath come back as
part of that when we get to that point. If Mr. Redpath, if you're available later today, or are we going to get to this today? Okay. To speak about some executive session style materials. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Redpath.
Yes, I'm sorry, what was said?
Are you able to be available this afternoon as we get into the budget discussion when we go into executive session? Because there are remaining questions for you, but they are of a non-public nature.
Yes. Yes, about what time would that be?
Hang on a second, let me see.
Chris, while we're waiting,
Yes.
North Dakota has suspended their ballot access grant. So if we can use that 9,000 for something else, that might help a little.
4:35. Okay, so yeah, hopefully within the hour. Let's remember that.
Within the hour? Okay, well, somebody, Chris, you have my cell phone number. Give me a call, Chris, when you're ready to do that, okay?
I will certainly do that, no worries. All right, thank you, Mr. Redpath and Mr. Winger, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone muted you. Press star 6 to unmute.
Just unplug it, it's good.
It's gone, we shouldn't have to do anything.
So,
Are you still running through?
At this point, just to reiterate the potential other action items in addition to the budget, would ask that the $9,000 encumbrance that was on the books for this year to go to North Dakota be reallocated to Alabama. Secondly, if possible, there is a request from at least members of one state party for the LNC to consider a statement against the top 5 party initiative. So, but other than that, that is a conclusion of the report. There are some other details in the report itself, so please take a look. And at this time, I'll
Mr.
questions.
Is a motion in order at the moment to make that reallocation? I move that the first part of what you said, that we reallocate the money from North Dakota to Alabama. Okay.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Mr. Thrasher, I have one question.
I will take questions in just a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to let the chair dispense with the motion.
Was it seconded?
Yes.
Okay. So we have, we have a motion on the floor to do as Mr. Thrasher suggested, which is reallocate the $9,000 that was previously for North Dakota to Alabama for 22. And it was seconded. Any objections to that?
I just want to clarify that this is coming out of the 2021 budget, not the 2022 budget. This is stuff we've already budgeted. It was going to go to North Dakota. North Dakota canceled their drive. We're just officially blessing to say
carry it over.
This can go to Alabama instead.
For 21. For 21.
For 21, 21's budget.
Yes.
Mr. Thrasher, related to this, I have another question. If we move this 9,000, does that mean we can subtract
Everyone else has left the
9,000?
call.
So does that mean that we can subtract 9,000 from the 53,000 for Alabama? 57, whatever.
perhaps theoretically, I would remind everyone, once again, the figure that's in there represents half of what the drive will cost to finish.
I absolutely
Leave that to
understand
the
that,
LNC's
but we
discretion.
also understand budgets, so I'm just trying to clarify for everybody that that possibility exists.
Mr. Bowen, your question separate from this motion.
Yeah, no, it's separate. I was just curious which state was asking for the request for the 5. I'm just curious of the regional revenue.
So, this was a state party member of Colorado State.
All right, okay, thank you.
And there's also, so Missouri, Nevada also currently at play, and they're,
Thank you.
got feelers out all over the place, so.
Mr. Nana?
Seeing as how we only have about 20 whatever days left in the year, is that money gonna get spent if we moved over in time?
I believe, I think Mr. Carlos has an answer for this.
They basically almost spent their entire allocation at this point. I think there's $3,000 left. So yes, they'll spend it.
The production in Alabama has been at or above the expectations.
Mr. Moment and Mr. Sidebar. Were you answering the question?
That was it for now. Pardon me?
I believe we're in motion.
We are. It was seconded, and I had asked for objections and then got some questions. So, are there any objections to this reallocation of $9,000? Hearing no objections, we will reallocate the $9,000 from North Dakota to Alabama. All right.
That does conclude the report, but I say again, the full report is uploaded to the Google Drive. Please take a look. I'll be here all weekend if there are additional questions. And at this time, if anyone else has questions.
I see one question from the gallery. Are there any objections to hearing from Ms. McCardle?
My question's regarding New York's ballot access. What's done is done, but looking back, is there anything that you would suggest the committee do differently in New York, in general?
In this case, it was the law that was passed very quickly. It was passed, there was emergency maneuvers at play, and would hindsight always being 2020, of course, it would have been great if there had been more, some dedicated efforts to keep the law from being passed, but at the same time, it was a quick timeline, there wasn't a lot that could be done at that time, and also, I think there may yet be some other legal remedies beyond what the current lawsuit that is being litigated right now to have some relief from this law. It's questionable whether that's possible or not. But this one's just a bad law. It's just a bad law. I mean, we've seen time and time again. I was talking to somebody earlier. The whole top 5 thing is a perfect example. People that want to limit the competition will do absolutely anything they can, except for having open ballot access for parties on a general election ballot. That's and that's just a perfect example. On a personal note, I would have loved to put in the whole amount for a New York ballot access drive for this year. Looking at the LNC's budget, I understand that's not realistic. If Madam Chair, may we hear from Mr. DeRazio?
Yes. If there are no objections. Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, Clay DeRazio, First Vice Chair of New York. There seems to be a lot of questions about what's going on in New York and what happened with the ballot access, and I can use some clarity. Can y'all hear me? I feel like I'm talking to
You're welcome to come on.
Felt like I was talking to the code, so. I can see all of you much better now. Okay, so what happened was that, under the guise of, so we got our ballot access in 2018 because Larry Sharp got us enough votes. We got row F on the ballot. He's our candidate again in 2022. I'll get back to that in a minute. Under the cover of, campaign finance reform, a campaign finance commission was formed. They put in some rules that raise the thresholds to the threshold you saw in Mr. Tractor's report. Those thresholds were defeated by a court challenge that was led by the Conservative Party in New York and backed by every other minor party in New York because, well, frankly, they were oppressive. So those were struck down. Then, boom, world blew up, pandemic happened. Under cover of night, 3 men in a room, which is how they do the budget in New York, if you're not familiar. Basically, it's the Speaker of the House, the Senate, and the Governor, all Democrats, by the way, all get in a room and they agree on what the budget's gonna be, and then everyone goes on their merry way. They slipped something in there called Part ZZZ, which was exactly the same resolution that was struck down by the courts a month prior, putting it back in place. Now, when we got our ballot access in 2018, by virtue of Mr. Sharp's his performance in the election, we were guaranteed 4-year ballot access. One of the provisions was now 2-year ballot access, so now 2020 was all of a sudden a ballot access year. So in 2019, we had over 200 libertarians running for offices in New York. In 2020, we had a whole bunch. We had so many local offices. They were mostly federal, and somebody died or took an appointment, and we had to fill them in. So we had a lot of candidates for that, but it was mostly the statewide candidates with the raised threshold above what we even got for Gary Johnson. Applied now. We lost ballot access, so we immediately filed suit. I'm one of the plaintiffs on the suit. The Libertarian Party filed suit in conjunction with the Green Party of New York. We filed that in the Southern District of New York. We also filed an injunction against those ballot access restrictions until the case was heard and decided. Our injunction was denied. Later this month, our appeal on that preliminary injunction is being heard in the Second Circuit. Put a pin in that for a minute. So now, while we're sitting here waiting for the courts and our injunctions keep being denied, we've already lost a year. We've already had a year where we have literally thousands of local elections where we couldn't get on the ballot because our ballot access thresholds are so damn high in the 5th largest state in the country, in the state with the largest media market in the country, in the state where every major media outlet has a presence. This is a dire situation. I appreciate the legislative efforts and lobbying efforts, and I think those are important. I would love to hear more details on that. That's really what the crux of my question is. Because of who and what put the current restrictions in, and who and what are the parties in power. And when I say parties, I mean party, because we are in a single party system in New York State right now. I'd like to know who's introducing that and what's the likelihood of those restrictions being rolled back. Now, of course, I'm going to sit here and not be pessimistic about a lawsuit either. It would be great, but I can't stress enough how difficult it would be for us to get 70,000 signatures based on just volunteer numbers. We've done drive after drive at the 15,000 threshold, which we all know means 30,000. And the most signatures we have gotten are about 40,000 signatures with volunteers or with minimal paid petitions. Yes, I know this is a big ask, but it is an ask that is crucial for the future of the Libertarian Party in New York. Period. Thank you.
May I ask the speaker a question, please? Okay. There's a race to use a hypothetical now. I'll leave it at this point. A gentleman by the name of Jonathan Howe is running for Congress. He in the Bronx against someone named AOC. I think that's how we regard her. The Republican candidate is an absolute lunatic. Bronx, right? Bronx includes, okay. And he is, in his role in life, he is a public defender in family court in the Bronx. He has the opportunity to be an astonishing candidate simply because of his purely libertarian and purely humanitarian standards. My question is, how many people just strictly in Bronx and County and Queens does he have the opportunity to reach with a libertarian message if he gets on the ballot and has a chance to run?
If only there was anybody from Queens in the room. Oh, there is. There's someone right behind you. It's probably the Vice Sheriff of Queens County.
So, yeah, hi, Eric Cordova, Vice Sheriff of Queens County. So, AOC's district, Jonathan's district, is District 14, covers parts of Queens, which is Astoria and Long Island City, as well as parts of the Bronx. Those cover 300 to 400,000 people, just in those areas alone. That's just his district. And that doesn't mean that that doesn't then cross over, because you have 2 county affiliates that would be working with him, which would then bring his appeal to both of those boroughs, which would then, Queens itself is almost 2 million people, and the Bronx is just short of 1 million. So you're talking about 3 million people that race would appeal to. And like I said, a few 100,000 voters in those.
166,000.
That was close.
I rest my case. I don't know if there's better bang for the buck on the millions of dollars we're talking about spending. Regardless of the daunting challenge that this represents, there's no better bang for the buck in America than libertarian participation in the state of New York. Thank you.
Mr. Mullen and then Mr. Smith.
Quick question, you guys, I'm just not familiar. Is there an initiative process in New York? Yes. There is. So, I guess my question is, my concern, I'd like to know how many signatures an initiative takes versus this. Right? Like, I mean, in Jack the One-Up, is the initiative still the same, and what would the number of signatures be if you know by chance? I'm just looking for the long-term fix, not the short-term.
No, understood. I mean, so we don't have public referendum type things in.
Okay.
We don't have that as a mechanism.
Okay. So you can't.
There are ways to petition questions on the ballot.
Okay.
The thresholds would be set.
Alright. Oh, okay. Okay.
I just wanted to add to the Jonathan Howell thing. I had him on my show a couple weeks ago, and he has a really good platform for the area. He's promised me that he's going to wear holes in his soles of his shoes, just like AFC did, beating doors. He seems like a really good candidate for that area, and I mean, if this is going to help those candidates in New York, it's an important step for sure. So.
I
Still taking questions. Anyone else?
certainly take questions. I would also just say, again, if it were up to me, I'd want to fund this drive. This ask was prepared to give to the LNC, considering the significant restraints on budgeting that exist. This is not a perfect ad. This is not in a perfect world. This is not even, this is not the amounts that I would like if it were up to me, but this was prepared with the understanding that difficult decisions have to be made in this room.
So New York, we have the number of valid signatures. They also have the issue of being able to find labor to even do all this. But in previous drives, what was the cost per signature of the paid petitioners in New York? Not the overall average, because that won't help us here. We need to know cost per signature. And I actually, I'm thinking that I can probably figure that out.
I truly do not have that figure. I will note New York, with their petitioning laws, the whole out-of-state thing usually means you have to have 2 people that you're paying, because you have the signature gatherer and then the witness who's from New York, which also sounds like a union gig. There you go. But eventually, should probably be that would make a fine litigation topic as well. Yeah, I don't have the exact figure, but that's just yet another complication with the New York drive.
Because I'm thinking that no matter what we would do, right, that the volunteer effort is not going to be that much higher than what it's been previously. So we just take that off, and then we figure out how many more signatures it would be, we figure out that cost per signature there, and that would give us a cost of that drive. But I've heard a couple of numbers. Yeah, I mean, is it just generally accepted it's gonna be $1 million drive? Is that what we're talking about here?
350 to $500,000, I'd say.
Okay.
Of course, guesstimates, but it's part of the situation is the consideration that because of the retention numbers now, and it's actually a little worse than it looks on paper, as Mr. DeRossi pointed out to me earlier. It's 130,000 votes or 2%, whichever is higher. So I think the figure right now is actually closer to 150. Something is more than 150,000 votes. So there's going to need to be, as it stands right now, a petition drive in New York State. To me, the question is, does the LNC put money towards a petition drive next year and 2024, or just 2024? And that is one of the painful considerations that were made in this ask. I would also, I would ask the LNC to please put in something for lobbying efforts against this. There is a real chance to change this law, if for no other reason than because the Working Families Party doesn't like it either. And if that's the end we have to use to try and get this, literally the worst, one of the worst ballot access laws in the country thrown out, so be it. So I would encourage the LNC to put something towards this, to honor the commitment that the Libertarian Party of New York is making. Again, with the painful recognition, it's difficult to do the whole thing right now. So, are there any other questions? With that, I will yield the time. Thank you.
All right. That brings us to Convention Oversight Committee.
I would ask that we move Convention Oversight Committee report until tomorrow. I am having undue amounts of issues accessing our reports on CRM, and I'm waiting for Amy Burns to catch back up with me. I can give you some real basic numbers, but I certainly can't give you a full report until I can access those reports.
And the report did not already get submitted?
It did not.
Right.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that as well as recovering from COVID.
So, is it possible for you to deliver what you can orally here and then send it to everyone overnight? And then if there are questions, we could
I can try, but I can't. Yeah, let me give you what little bit I have been able to pull. Until we can access the CRM records, it's impossible for me to give you full reports, and it's something that we're working on. So as of today, convention fundraising total is $76,014. 231 tickets sold, 103 basic, 23 bronze, 20 silver, 78 gold, 7 welcoming committee. So far, our ticket sales have exceeded our set expectations by about 6 weeks. We have 2 vendor tables so far sold out of 50. If you're looking for vendor tables, please get with Rich Bowen. He will help you lock those down. Kara Schultz will have a complete training track at the convention. We're hoping to have 3 tracks. One is solely Kara's track, so that will be there. There's no carryover on that. One of the things that the committee has asked me to address the board about is there is some concern, and we are hearing from people who are very concerned that potentially the state of Nevada might mandate vaccines to attend. We are getting a lot of questions as the COC about what we will do if that happens. Our response, so that you know, is that we as the COC will do nothing, because that decision and decisions like that rest with this board. So at some point, it might be beneficial for the board to discuss what they would want to do, if they would want to invalidate a contract that would cost this party a considerable amount of money, unless we could find a way to do it under a force majeure. Probably a question for Oliver, but definitely something that members are asking about that I think it would benefit the committee to consider.
Is this the time you'd like to replace a member of the committee?
Yeah, that's what's coming next, but I think I had a question about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned the training track. Is that just going to be the same thing as a regional trainer, or will this have additional content, or what?
That's something Kara could speak to, but remember how, for anybody who's been, we have seminars, breakouts, workshops, we will still have those, but one full track of training will be provided by Kara Schultz, and I think she's better to speak to what will be available on that. And then I have one more piece of the convention oversight committee business. Do you want to hear from Kara now, or after we address the other business?
Now.
So what we're looking at the convention, it will not be a repeat of the classes that were at the regional training. The regional training's curriculum was wide, but not deep. It was your fundamentals. At the national convention, it will be narrower focuses that go deeper.
Okay, and then, anybody else have more questions for Ms. Schultz about that training? The last thing we have for you today is Ms. Hogarth has found herself in a position where she needs to resign from the COC. So we will have a vacancy to fill. I'm gonna ask that we add 5 minutes tomorrow where we're filling other vacancies to attend to that. That will give opportunity for LNC members who are interested. It is an LNC position. To make themselves known. I can tell you I will be nominating Mr. Flores to fill that position. Mr. Flores has been in every meeting already, but if there is other interest, please reach out. Either nominate yourself or have somebody nominate you. Just know this is a working committee. It takes a lot of work. It takes a huge time commitment. If you don't think you have that, please just step back.
Mr. Longshore?
Yes, on behalf of Ms. Adams, I think she made a motion, and I just want to clarify, and that would be to move to add 5 minutes to filling standing committee vacancies tomorrow, for the purpose of also filling the convention oversight committee vacancy.
Okay.
I will second.
For my wording, where are we putting that in the agenda?
Hold on a second, sorry.
Yeah, now we're adding it to the agenda. It's just like
All right, okay. So, Mr. Wilford, for your information, what has been moved is to add 5 minutes to tomorrow's agenda under fill standing committee vacancies, which already exist. There are 2 committees listed there. We're going to add a third, which is convention oversight, and an additional 5 minutes. Okay. It was seconded. Are there any objections to making that adjustment for tomorrow? Hearing no objections, we'll do that. Thank you. So tomorrow we'll be also filling vacancies on the Convention Oversight Committee.
Were there any questions? That's all I got.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to add one thing to Convention Oversight Committee. As Ms. Adams said, you can contact me for exhibit booths. You can also contact me if anybody is interested in hospitality suites or the presidential suites. And Madam Chair, you and I need to sit down and decide who we're going to reach out to first. We had some names in mind of people we wanted to reach out to. So
thank you.
Just wanted to put that on the docket.
Mr. Nam?
Yeah, I should have asked a second ago, but it just came back to mind. So how real is this threat of them changing the way that people are able to attend, whether or not they're vaccinated, or is this just like, it might happen?
It absolutely is, and it might happen. We've spoken with the facility. The reality is Nevada is heavily tourist dependent for its existence. I think it's, absolutely anything can happen. I don't think it's a huge risk that would happen. It may be that that the nugget comes back and tells us that in any common areas, much like this weekend, they would like our attendees to wear masks. Absolutely. Just to be clear to this board, the committee's responsible. That's fine, but we are not in the enforcement business. So any enforcement of that is going to fall to that facility. We are not going to put hallway monitors out to make sure that our attendees are wearing masks. We are not going to place escalator monitors. That is absolutely not something that this COC is going to ever choose to do. But it is absolutely possible, especially look at the world we live in. I mean, legitimately anything is possible. I don't think it's highly likely. Maybe Liz can speak to that. She lives there.
So as a resident of Nevada and Las Vegas, I went to a concert on the 20th at House of Blues in Mandalay Bay Hotel. And it was, you needed either a Vaxxed or a negative COVID test within 72 hours of the event starting. So it was one or the other. They didn't enforce it either way. And I haven't heard anything at home saying something would change along those lines. That's what I would guess right now being the most recent.
Liz, question for you. Do you know if the venue was mandating that, or was the state government mandating
It
it?
would have been the venue.
Thank you.
So. And then absolutely, we're libertarians. We believe in personal choice and personal responsibility. It is the purview of the committee that we leave each of those decisions up to individuals who are gathering in our gathering spaces. Our private spaces are our private spaces. We have no intention of enforcing mask mandates, any requirement like that. If you personally feel better and safer and more responsible wearing a mask, we absolutely salute you making that choice for yourself. But the committee will not be enforcing your choice on anyone else.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the convention committee?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are moving on to special committees, and the first one is the convention voting process committee. Mr. Thrasher.
So, just briefly, there is no committee report at this time. I actually would request an audience with the Convention Oversight Committee Chair, as well as I would like to speak with members of the Bylaws Committee. There is some question as to the actual purview and purpose of the Convention Voting Process Committee as it stands right now. So, hope to report back after those conversations.
Thank you. We are currently trying to get Jared Hall on the line here for the Task Force on Respectful Workplace Practices.
Robert's dialing that right now.
Okay. So, just give us a moment. Does anybody need a restroom break?
Please.
Any break?
Madam Chair,
Ma'am.
I would ask that we take a 10-minute recess.
All right, we have a motion for.
There's a motion to amend to 15. And I would second the motion to amend to 15.
Okay, so I don't think I heard a second anyway. We have a motion for 15 minutes recess. It was seconded. Any objections to that? When we return, we will hear from some more committees.
today. This report is going to be fairly short. The task force hasn't met since, I believe, May, right before our Chicago meeting. At the time, we had Holly Ward, who was kind of taking the reins and leading us with that. But she has since stopped helping with that and moved on to another organization. With that, we haven't met since then. Nor can I find the things that we had kind of talked about. We were taking, I guess, suggestions for policy changes or possible bylaws amendments or something along that nature. But I can't find that document anymore, and she never responded to my email asking for her to send that this week. So that's really all I have. I know Ms. Shade is there. If she has anything else that she wants to add, then you know, more than welcome to, since she is also on the task force. That's really all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Shade, would you like to add anything?
Sure, yeah. So the last time we met, as you said, was in May. We had submitted to the then chair a report on a proposal of different things that we would like to see, but it wasn't really broken down in depth. It was kind of like an overview of what we were looking to accomplish. And then after the change, we have not met since. So as a task force, we now, again, are missing committee members and need to reevaluate where we go from here, as we were not given any feedback since that Chicago meeting, since before that meeting. So that's where we'd be at.
Okay. Any questions for these folks?
I guess I have a question. Do you all have an interest in continuing to work? Are you looking for guidance? Are you looking for replacement members?
Mr. Hall, did you hear Ms. Hogarth's question?
I did not actually hear that at all.
Okay, she asked if there was actual interest in continuing with this task force, as it's called. And if so, do you need members? Do you need guidance? What is it that you would need if you do intend to continue with it?
I know I myself would be interested in continuing this. A lot of it, the problem was trying to get everybody that we had on the task force finding a concrete time to be able to meet, since we all had various schedules. And then if we can find the document that we had from this board, I think we should be able to keep going. That's just myself. I don't know if anybody else has an interest in continuing the work on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else?
Yep, thank you.
All right. That'll do it. Talk to you later.
Thanks.
All right. Next on the agenda. We still have some of the advisory committees that were established by the previous chair, and 2 of them have indicated that they have, at least, that they are continuing with things and have things to report today. So next on the list is the Development Advisory Committee.
Right at the end of the road. Perfect.
Ms. Hogarth, 10 minutes.
Oh, I don't think I'll need that long. I can't remember if, or I think it was the last meeting where we asked for, well, in conjunction with the affiliate support committee, we asked the LNC to commit $500 to a project that South Carolina had contingent on us fundraising the other $500 from people in South Carolina. We were able to raise, and you guys voted yes, so that was fantastic. And we were able to raise not just 500 to match the 500, but the entire 1,000. So it actually wound up costing the National Party nothing. $1,000 came through the National Party because that's where the donations went, and went back out to South Carolina. That seems like a really good model. It's like you plant the seed and you get the thing and you still have the seed. So that's cool. So we were thinking that it would be fun to do that on a bigger pilot scale. So one of my concerns when I ran was that the LNC become more engaged, the LNC members, board members become more engaged in fundraising. And some of us have, but I haven't seen that happen at the scales, certainly not with myself, that I had intended at the beginning. And I think that having a kind of pilot project like this would draw in LNC members into fundraising that's more project focused and more region focused, and that would interest them. And so what I mean by pilot project is I would like, and sorry, I know you hate workshopping at the thing. I would like to somehow either add this into the budget or shift some of the development money in the budget to a little sequestered sub-fund or something. And not much, just like 5 to 10,000 that would be available for matching, 30% or 50% matching type things. And between the affiliate support committee and the development committee, we would develop a request for proposals. We would ask state parties or regions to come with us with ideas, and we would do basically the same thing we did. We would run them by staff to make sure they were legal and not like problematic in any kind of weird way or competitive with the national party. And then we would just work with the state party to talk to people in that state or region or wherever the project was encompassed, and do fundraising that would come through the national party and go back out to the state to help fund that project. And we could develop parameters that, they committed so much, or it was a project already in process, or, we would have to sit down and make parameters for that. But I just think that that would be a good way for board members to get involved in fundraising and to get the states working, looking at national as their partner instead of, competitor or annoying boss or whatever. So I think that the best thing to do is bring that up in the budget discussion. I don't know, I'm actually looking for guidance at this point, because I don't want to just move like a chunk of money right now, right before the budget discussion. But I'll do that. I did talk to Tara about that, and she indicated that that was, seemed like a reasonable plan to her. I'm not sure I'm paraphrasing that correctly, but that was not unreasonable. So, and ideally, it would again cost the national party nothing. It would actually even net money, but there's no guarantee, of course. So that's kind of where I am.
Ms. Adams?
I really don't want to come off any kind of way. So I'm trying to be really cautious of this. I get it, Susan, I think it's coming from a really good place. And at some time, I would like to see that be something that we're doing. But I've just spent quite a bit of time with Richard going over the budget, just trying to find the money for ballot access. And when you say ideally, it wouldn't cost us any money, well, ideally, neither would ballot access. But the reality is, it does. And I just don't know. Let's get into the budget conversation some more when we're in executive session and discussing the budget. Maybe if you could show me someplace where you think it would work, I might feel differently. But at this point, I would like to see us focus on the key infrastructure things that we know we're required to do, and hopefully we end the year with way more revenue than we thought, and maybe we can have this conversation at that time.
Well, that's good feedback, because I know that everyone comes to the budget meeting and the budget's been carefully constructed with their pet project to add on, and I don't want this to seem as an add-on. It would be great if it just sequestered money already allocated to fundraising. But that would probably be a good place for staff to provide feedback. But yeah, I'll look at this.
Thank you.
Ms. Adams, just to alleviate some of that concern, Ms. Hogarth and I did kind of toss around the idea of adding that to affiliate support, because I only put $2,000 in our budget line this year, which I would fundraise for. and an extra $5,000 doesn't seem unreasonable for our committee to fundraise if that's the way that has to work out. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, see, I love it. If it could be self-funding, cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Ms. Hogarth or related to the Development Advisory Committee? All right, anything else, Ms. Hogarth?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Mr. Rodset, bring us into marketing and media, 10 minutes.
Yes, again, hopefully I don't need the whole 10 minutes. We currently, as a committee, we've met once in the last quarter. We currently have 7 new rack cards that are in various stages of working. Due to changes in the National Committee, we are down to 3 members. And would love to have 2 more volunteers to bring our number back up to 5. That would make life a lot easier. Yes, sir.
Sorry, if you're going to.
No, there are a couple other projects, but they haven't had any traction in the last quarter because we are short-staffed. So that's all I have to report, and I'll entertain questions.
Mr. Longstreet?
Yes, so Mr. Rodson, it sounds like this is a good committee. It has a lot of good work, there's a lot of good things coming out of it. These advisory committees were originally established by the previous chair to help advise the chair as which ways to go. I'm wondering if from your perspective, it might not be more fruitful to make this a permanent standing committee and draft language with that committee's input, of course, 100% from that committee preferred, to make this something that we pull into our policy manual, so that way, when the work is done with this term, they can pick up and continue with that. And if that is something that you would find favorable, I know it's off topic from the rest of your report, I would encourage you to take that to the committee and see, and then we can put in how many people are required, and as vacancies automatically come open, we can fill them that sort of thing.
I would support that.
Let's work together.
Absolutely. There have been some great things that have come out of this committee. I'm very proud of my work on this committee, and I look forward to the committee hopefully surviving in the future.
Anything else? All right. We are moving on, and because of the changes we made this morning to the agenda, we are now going to move into the budget discussion, adoption of the 2022 budget. As stated, some of this will be an executive session, and that actually means the beginning of it. So, at this point, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Point of order.
Mr. Longstreet?
Yeah, I believe in order to move into executive session, we need to clearly establish what specifically the budget itself is not a topic that is meant for all of executive session, but there are specific topics that are meant for executive session. So I'd like to know what we are proposing to go and discuss.
Yep, give me just a second. This is going to be for discussion of personnel matters. And yes, and legal discussion.
So can we recap the motion?
What's that?
Can we recap what the motion is?
Yes, so, Mr. Smith, will you restate your motion so that it includes?
You want to add that to the motion, then you think to discuss.
And any relevant other individuals outside of the LNC that you would like to meet.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to move into executive session so that we can speak about
Personnel matters.
And compensation, staff compensation.
And potential legal matters.
And potential legal matters. That was a hell of a workshop.
Who would you like to stay in here?
Definitely, executive director is probably a good idea for now.
If the conversation is just gonna be restricted to the confidential sheet, I think that's fine. If
we could dismiss you at another point.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if it's gonna touch on something where you might want Robert Kraus in the room.
Yeah, that's possible.
Well,
we can always bring them in.
Agreed. If Mr. Kraus is willing to remain available nearby.
Yes.
Then
No,
I
it's
think
complicated, it's not executive session.
I did it earlier.
So, for now, just Mr. Harris.
For now.
Mr. Hagan?
Let me offer a suggestion. In the past, we have started on the overview of the budget in open session, and then go into executive session for that, particularly for the staff salary sheet. I didn't know if
I
we
can
want to
withdraw my
start
motion.
off with open and then end up with executive session with the idea that we will not do anything more open today, so that any of our guests could take off for the day.
Yeah, then we can.
Just an option.
And we can do the overview tomorrow morning after we workshop the executive session.
Just saying that as an option, whatever the body wants to do.
That works for me. Would you like me to add that to my motion?
That would help.
Okay, then I will add to the motion that we'll finish in executive session and adjourn after that. And pick up the budget discussion tomorrow morning.
Okay.
All right.
So, the motion as I've heard it so far, to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters, contractual negotiations, potential litigation, to have Mr. Harris remain in the room,
For now.
Mr. Kraus available,
Correct.
and that we will end the day in executive session and return tomorrow for open session.
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Yeah. It was. Are there any objections that I do see in hand?
Oh, wait a minute, I forgot, that doesn't leave the city time for public comment either the day.
We weren't gonna have it today, anyway.
No.
It's at the end of tomorrow. We have it in the morning, and then tomorrow.
We also have Mr. Redpath waiting to talk about.
That is correct. So, in addition to that, Mr. Redpath, we've already decided was gonna be available but he'll be called in when it's time. Thank you.
My goodness.
Okay. So,
I figured I would just ask.
okay, that's fine. When the time comes.
Ahead of time, or?
I just want to approve.
Which one are we doing first? Are we doing employee compensation first?
Probably.
It's gonna be a minute.
Chair, point of personal privilege.
All right, I need order in the room, please. So, are there any objections to the motion to go into executive session as it stands?
Yes.
Okay, so, what is it?
I would like us to start with a general overview, enter into those non-executive session discussions, and potentially start the morning tomorrow in executive session. It is 3:48. We're scheduled to leave this meeting and adjourn this evening at 5 o'clock. An hour.
Okay, so there's been an objection to going into executive session, which would include ending an executive session most likely. So the best thing to do right now, it was seconded.
Yeah, and I object to going into executive session first thing in the morning tomorrow to not have a public comment.
Oh,
Well, do it after
that
public
would
comment.
still, public comment would still be part of the orders of the day, like at the beginning. That's,
Well, principle.
yeah,
I
public.
would also agree to not have a public comment.
On principle, I have objected.
They seem pretty excited. Let's go recruit them.
Okay, so the best thing to do, if you agree with what Ms. Adams has said, the best thing to do is vote this motion down. And then we continue with our budget discussion in open session. Everybody has already left. So, it has been, it belongs to the body now. So it has, there has been objection. Do you have, yes, what would you like to say?
Speak on it. I'd just like to speak.
Mr. Smith.
Madam Chair, I believe that since there's been objection, we would go to debate.
That is correct.
I would like to say that we know that Mr. Redpath is available this afternoon. We don't know his availability tomorrow. I mean, Mr. Thrasher is here, we can ask him his, but as far as external resources, are they available tomorrow or not? And I don't have an answer to that. But I do think that from the ballot access side, we would almost certainly want to have Redpath available for at least 15 minutes sometime. If we want to go over the overview and then just quickly hit the ballot access executive session and then adjourn, I'd be totally cool with that because I know that Mr. Redpath said he's available today. But Otherwise, if not, then I need to see, hopefully he's available. I mean, I don't know, but. Let's see.
Are you asking about tomorrow? Mr. Moore?
Yes, I'm gonna send Mr. Redpath.
Look, I can't withdraw this motion because I'm 2 for 2 today, and that's never happened. I'm not gonna withdraw any motion.
You can, anyway.
I'm shooting for the moon here today. Guys.
Okay.
Mr. Redpath says he's available tomorrow until 1 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
Okay. So where we are is we have a motion to go into executive session now. Everyone's already left. To discuss the confidential parts of the budget and legal stuff and. What's that?
Want me to read the motion
Please,
as I have it?
please.
Okay.
Please.
To move into executive session to discuss personnel matters, employee compensation, and possible legal matters related to the budget, with Tyler Smith staying in the room and Robert Tyler Harris staying in the room and Robert Kraus to be available to return to the room, and we would adjourn at the end of executive session.
Returning to talk about those.
No, that's automatic. Okay, so we are now proceeding to, since there was objection to that, we'll proceed to a vote on moving into executive session. Can we just do show of hands on this? All right, so all in favor of moving into executive session as explained, raise your hand. Okay.
3 for 3.
We will be moving into executive session. Oh, yes, sorry, all opposed. Also, if you are opposed to moving into executive session, we should. What's that?
3 for 3.
All right, I saw,
Executive session.
it was 11 to 3. Okay, so we are now in executive session.
Not everybody has
Be
lunch.
nearby.
Staying anyways.
Be nearby.
Charles gonna be late.
Madam Chair, is the stream live?
It is. Ms. McCutcheon, will you please kill the stream?
I will.
An hour away. Get out. Not even an hour away.
Ready tomorrow.
I'll